Hello, and welcome to this overview of BNamericas' 2025 Outlook for Infrastructure Capex in Latin America. I'm Laura Superneau, Managing Editor for Research at BNamericas. Latin America's infrastructure landscape is undergoing a period of recalibration. While investment momentum persists in key segments such as highways, sanitation, ports, and rail, the broader regional outlook remains shaped by a delicate interplay of political shifts, fiscal constraints, and long-standing institutional challenges. According to BNamericas Project Profile database, 149 major infrastructure projects with a total capex value of nearly $75 billion are scheduled to begin construction in the 12-month period spanning the second quarter of 2025 through to the first quarter of 2026. Looking at these 4 quarters, highways tally the largest number of initiatives sent to enter construction or pre-construction, with 42 projects worth $16.1 billion in capex. Works are also set to start on 23 port projects worth a total of $28.7 billion, where more than half of that total investment figure is attributable to one mega port project in Colombia, the Las Americas International Port. Rounding out the top 3 segments is water and waste, with 33 projects requiring a total $8.4 billion in capex set to enter construction over the 12-month period. Airports and hospitals are the next biggest categories in terms of the number of projects that are set to start construction over the coming year. By country, Mexico leads in the number of projects with 38 initiatives worth $17.1 billion. Brazil is second with 23 projects requiring a total capex of $12.5 billion, and Peru follows with 22 projects worth a total $5 billion. Chile is fourth in terms of the number of projects with 19, but these tally a capex nearly as high as Brazil's of $11.1 billion. In terms of total value, Colombia's 18 projects will drive investment of more than $23 billion, again strongly influenced by the Megaport project, where projected capex is more than $15 billion. One trend that we'd like to highlight is that despite a smaller overall presence in near-term construction pipeline, an emphasis on flagship rail and metro projects is noticeable around the region as countries diversify logistics infrastructure and seek to reduce dependency on roads, as well as improve urban mobility in large metropolitan areas. Mexico is leading with a bold push in rail, with over 5,600 kilometers of new rail lines and $58 billion in funding through its Plan Mexico, including key intercity and freight routes. Brazil is gaining momentum in urban passenger rail, with major projects like Sao Paulo's Metro Line 6, Salvador's Light Rail, Fortaleza's Airport Line, all moving towards federal and BNDES support. Colombia is modernizing its freight network with projects like the La Dorada-Chiriguaná rail corridor and is sourcing rail materials directly via Chinese-led consortia, while also advancing the construction of Bogotá's first metro line, as well as earlier stage commuter rail projects. Chile is expanding commuter services under the EFE, the state rail company, with works on Santiago-Melipilla and the Santiago-Batuco lines and complementary urban rail upgrades such as Metro Lines 7 and 9 in Santiago. And Peruvian capital Lima is advancing with Line 2 of its metro after a lengthy construction period with significant delays, and is building a branch line to support the airport, while Lines 3 and 4 of the Lima Metro are in the planning phase. Despite the momentum and investment, however, many countries do face a familiar challenge: political cycles and permitting delays. Still, a clear need for private investment in order to reach infrastructure goals remains apparent around the region. In Peru, infrastructure growth is now strong thanks to Pro-Inversion's leadership and renewed tender activity, but there is uncertainty around the 2026 election, and long delays in project execution, mainly due to bureaucratic obstacles, have become normalized in the country. Colombia and Chile also illustrate how elections can slow projects or politicize priorities. In Chile, reforms to streamline permitting are advancing rather slowly, while in Colombia, the 2026 presidential election introduces execution risks despite a solid project roadmap. Argentina, under President Milei, has seen a drastic cut in federal public works. This has put the spotlight on provincial governments, which are seeking ways of financing projects. The federal government has released funds to provinces for only 376 out of 2,700 previously active projects. In Brazil and Mexico, we're seeing a harder lean into private capital. In Brazil, President Lula continues to show favor for private capital in the face of fiscal restraints in the country, despite traditionally being a strong advocate of public investment. The federal government in Brazil has auctioned 11 federal highway contracts since Lula's term began in January 2023, and 13 more are planned for 2025. In addition, Brazil's sanitation sector may need as much as $180 billion by 2033 and has been driven in recent years by widespread privatization. Mexico, meanwhile, is navigating a shift under President Sheinbaum, who took office 8 months ago. While former President López Obrador favored publicly funded megaprojects, the Sheinbaum administration is emphasizing mixed investment schemes, especially for rail, roads, and border infrastructure. This trend shows how fiscal limits are turning private sector engagement from an option into a necessity, even in countries that politically perhaps would rather favor publicly funded works. In short, bureaucracy and political timing remain key points that must be carefully managed to ensure the advance of infrastructure projects across the region. And finally, to summarize, we're seeing strong CapEx momentum across Latin America, with a $75 billion project pipeline coming to construction over the next year, backed by diverse funding models. Private sector participation and rail investments are two key trends shaping national strategies, and yet political and regulatory bottlenecks do continue to constrain execution. In that sense, the CapEx cycle through 2026 will be defined not just by ambition, but how well governments can align their institutions' financing and timing to get projects over the finish line. This concludes our Infrastructure Capex 2025 summary presentation. I'd like to remind BNamericas subscribers that the full Infrastructure Capex 2025 report is available on our platform. Thank you for watching.